Good evening, viewers, and welcome to another session of Mazungumzo. This is your host, Dr. Gilbert Gicharu Githere, coming to your home with the program Mazungumzo. Every time we come, we have share some thought. We are dealing with Hegel, chapter to chapter. Now, in this chapter, we reach where Hegel is dealing with self-consciousness. And the self-consciousness has a double image. Excuse me. It is got a master's kind of self-consciousness and a bondsman. Now, as we said in previous discussions, is that Hegel is very much an expression or the totality of Western philosophy. And as we said in those programs, that the others in the Western system is very, very much actually a thought found in the philosophy of the day. And for that matter, Hegel is not different. So we reach this chapter, which I found very, very important because my topic is Hegel and the subject of others. And as I said earlier, in the phenomenology of history, Hegel plays down on the indigenous people badly, especially the Africans. He just kind of says they have never invented anything in the world. And if you remember well your history, that the pyramids, a wonder of the world, one of them is found in Africa. So it's kind of funny that he should say something like that. So in this section of bondsman and the master, there is two words very popular in Western philosophy, and this skepticism and Stoicism. The Stoics are considered to be the masters. They can bear problem, they can withstand suffering, and it's a virtue to be a Stoic. But skepticism, people who are skeptics, So the bondsman is actually like he's considered in a realm of skepticism. This otherness. This is otherness. We are seeing it here also. Skepticism, negativity, one from the master and another from the bondsman, manifest into a unit in the bondsman. The negativity actually in this section of Hegel, in the self-consciousness, the negativity in the consciousness of refusing to be an object. Actually, the bondsman ends up having the two negativities together. He's having to carry the problems of the master. The positive aspects of the bondsman that allow him existence is also still in him. Because you see, earlier we had said that self-consciousness of the bondsman just wants to exist, but the master wants to be free. So actually you see Hegel brings a very important subject, that dependency, which Professor Mazrui calls it aggressive dependency, is very, very much a characteristics or an entity of the bondsman existence. He just wants to exist in life, produce labor, be employed by the master, survive, enjoying himself, desires of the body. This is the way Hegel looks at bondsman. And the bondsman here is the other. These conditions are unalterable, self-identical, self-confounding, self-perverting. The self-consciousness of objectivity and skepticism that are found in the bondsman have those four qualities, characteristics that I have just read up there. You can see them. In previous situation, master and bondsman carried their own problems. Each one of them carried their own problem. So self-conscious dealt with his refusing to be an object and wanting to be himself with his own ego separately. And the master did the same. They had their own positive negativity contradicting within their selves, but each one had a problem of his own. But in this otherness that Hegel is dealing with, the bondsman starts to carry the problems of the master. And it is very, very interesting because here you can look at most of the serfs serve the lords. They serve the Lord or the rich people, the bourgeoisie, as Marx has it. So even in this situation, we can see all the problems of the master, his upkeep, if it is keeping up his house, his garden, his farm, if he has an industry, is all done by the others. So actually, Hegel is like he is defining that the master lives on the back of the bondsman. The strive to be a thinking entity was an individual's responsibility or problem, but now the tables have turned, and the bondsman is responsible for master's problem when it comes to self-consciousness. So actually here, you hear this word very much, people using double consciousness. It is this situation that the bondsman finds himself. He has a double consciousness. He is carrying the problems of the master and his own problems. And you'll find it is very true. Ability, master is kind of, in a Greek philosophy of Stoicism, was a virtue of the lords, of the people who controlled, life. Stoicism is actually a virtue of somebody who can persevere problems, delay gratification, and be able to save. And actually, it is considered a trait of the wealthy people. The ability to kind of suffer for a future or better things to come. So Stoicism is, according to Hegel, a master's trait. Those are his characteristics. So the ability to delay gratification and save for a better future, sorry for that type of beat, is actually behind the idea of socialism. The neoconservatives pride themselves to belong to Stoicism, ability to bear, withstand pain and suffering for a better future or a full state of freedom. As I said earlier in the fourth program or in the third program, the master in Hegel's thinking is always portrayed as a risk taker, miser when it came to monetary activities. So you see, most of the neoconservatives consider that if you spend money like the stimulus package or the recovery budget, any budget that has been passed by Congress, 1.9 is considered exorbitant when it is going to the poor people. But if it was to relieve rich people of their taxes, which they most of them never pay taxes, they own 1% of the country's riches and they pay least taxes. So you can wonder how you can classify them as people who sacrifice and they suffer, but that is according to Hegel. Conversely, the bondsman is in a fortuitous imbroglio, accidental scandal, for he finds himself carrying the negativity of the master and his own positivity, negativity. The self is in that double quagmire. A double quagmire, a double whammy, as they say it in the West. The conditions the bondsman finds himself seem to want to disappear, but yet linger on in its self-consciousness. So Hegel has this ability to let the words as live a life. Words in Hegel, the phenomenology, that the wonder, the wow, is that the words themselves can speak. They have a life. They are talking to one another. And that is the most interesting phenomenology. The words are living entity also. But yet linger on in its self-consciousness. They seem as if they would soon be passing out of sight, but this is a mirage. They still stay on. The disappearance of this negativity is never valid. There is always in the bondsman's self-consciousness that his problems will disappear. And he will be this, happy, free man, in the society, living comfortably. Contingent, confusion state. He's always in a state of contingency. Or these things are never real, but they start to manifest them. They become real. He is ever the one sweating for feeding the master. All the wealth of the lords. If you trace the wealth of the lords, they origin from the serfs, either in Europe or Africa or Asia. Bondsman has lost self-consciousness and has deteriorated into universal self-sameness, a limbo area of negativity, of all singleness and all differences, the inner world of void. You remember previously we discussed this inner world of void. It is all darkness and there's a lot of negativity. And that's where actually the formulas, form and content, that's the world of form and content. Mysteries are only solved through formulas. And Frege, Gottlieb Frege, the German mathematician and philosopher, who came up with a fixed order of predicate calculus, which helps to solve the problem of the abstract world of form and context. So the bondsman has that problem, that there is this dark area, the limbo side of his self-consciousness. And he is in a situation, the particular opposed to the other particular. From sense and thought, pure consciousness, bondsman, through fortuitous obogulio, accidental scandal, gives in to duality that burdens it with the carrying of master's problem and its own problem of juggling, and it actually has to juggle the two worlds of positivity and negativity in its consciousness. You have got to think how the master will benefit. Becomes your problem. You will have to tend the land, to produce, to harvest, to market, to distribute. And it all goes back to helping the master live a comfortable life. So Hegel here actually is where he actually brings out what I meant when I say Hegel and the subject of others. Here it is in some subtlety, in a very hidden form, You got to use hermeneutics to dig out that actually he's talking how a capitalistic state is set up. It is always using the labor of the poor. And it becomes a giddy wheel of a perpetually self-creating disorder, like the inner cities. Yes, violence. You just get somebody has shot 2 people, and a policeman has also shot 3 people. Yes, people are, ever in a vicious circle of not having enough. The country has so much, but people have so little. They're dying of hunger. Most of them stay eating so little. They are malnourished. So they eat all kind of bad food and they put too much weight because you are not eating balanced diet. So the problems of self-consciousness, right here, you can see it is in double consciousness. This becomes a giddy wheel of perpetually self-creating disorder. As Hegel has it, it produces this self-impelling confusion. But as I said earlier, it is also an inner world where the formulas have got to be evolved to solve the problems of appearances. Like when you want to understand the cosmos, how the cosmos works, the outer world, you got to come up with formulas, fixed order of predicate calculus, as Gottlieb Frege, the German philosopher, taught us. Formulas of solving E equal mc squared. That is Albert Einstein. The negativity of all singleness and differences for bondsman to come out of this quagmire is impossible. This becomes an infinite way of life for the bondsman. This becomes a permanent whirlpool of gravity that keeps the cosmos, like the one which keeps the cosmos in unison and in perfect motion. He is in that kind of situation. It is in that situation of bondsman master, the way it's created, it becomes like almost a natural situation. Hegel is showing that this is how things should be. There should be others. It is actually almost a perfect situation that some people should be deprived for others to live comfortably. And this is what you call an essential position. The bondsman consciousness finds itself. It is fooled at times of being free of the confusion it had willingly caused, but soon it realizes this is a mirage, for it still feels the confusion. It's a vertigo situation. It's like a vertigo. And you know how vertigos are bad. It goes from hither thither, self-consciousness, self-same consciousness to confused and confusing consciousness. It lacks the ability to synchronize the two states of consciousness. It is unable to balance. And it lets go the unessential state at times, but immediately it reappears. It stops seeing, hearing it, but it hears and sees it simultaneously. That's what I'm saying is a vertigo situation. It's like hallucinations. So you can see Hegel in wanting the Westerners to understand others will always be there and this will be their state. He kind of discusses it. You think he's discussing self-consciousness as if it does not manifest itself in the institutions that you are living in. But in actual sense, this is what the institutions really acquire in a capitalistic state. I don't mean the socialistic state has a better side, because Russia and China, there is oppression, there is human suffering, there's human abuse. So I am not talking of capitalism as per example that you go to Russia, or you go to Cuba, or you go to China or North Korea. That's where you find perfection, where there is no bondsman. That's where bondsmen are, because the whole society is what I'm discussing. So don't get me wrong, think that I'm praising socialists. No, we haven't had a situation where we have perfect socialism that we can talk about and be proud of. No. What is set forth here is a mode and a relation of the unchangeable, came to light as the experience through which self-consciousness passes in its unhappy state of deremption or separation. This experience is now doubleless, not in its own one-sided process, for it is itself unchangeable consciousness. And this later consequently is a particular consciousness as well. And the process is as much a process of that unchangeable consciousness, which makes its appearance there as certainly as the other. For that movement is carried on in these moments, and an unchangeable now opposed to the particular in general. Then, being itself particular, opposed to the other particular, and finally at one with it. But this consideration, so far as it is our affair, it is here out of place. For thus far we have only had to do with unchangeableness as unchangeableness of consciousness, which for that reason is not true immutability, but is still affected with an opposite we have not had before us, the unchangeable per se and by itself. We do not therefore know how this latter will conduct itself. What has here so far come to light is merely this, that two caution, which is our object here. The determinations above indicated appear in the unchangeable. So that paragraph is actually in summation. It's actually telling you that the situation the bondsman finds himself is a very, very difficult situation. It's unchangeable. And it is just that quagmire. It's like a yarn, a big yarn which has coiled itself together. You are trying to uncoil it. You don't know where the head is and the tail is. You spend days and days trying to undo the Gordian knot. Until we meet again, this is your host, Dr. Gilbert Gicharu Githere. These things are difficult, but we're trying to decipher and see how the Westerners have created this world of others. Until we meet again, ciao. Good evening, viewers.